October 13, 2014, 32-year-old Elizabeth Sullivan vanished without a trace from her home in San Diego, California. The young mother of two had last been seen that day, with her final known contact being a text message sent just before her phone went silent. When Elizabeth failed to respond to calls and messages from her best friend Nathan the following day, he grew concerned and contacted the police to report her missing on October 14th. From the moment Elizabeth was reported missing, investigators took the case very seriously. They quickly discovered troubling details about Elizabeth's marriage and home life that raised red flags. Elizabeth and her husband Matthew Sullivan, a Navy serviceman, had been married since 2010, but their relationship had deteriorated significantly in recent years. Friends and family described how Elizabeth had changed, seeming unhappy and engaging in more partying and destructive behaviors. The couple was sleeping in separate bedrooms in their 3-story townhome, and Elizabeth had met with a divorce lawyer on the very day she disappeared. Strangely, it was not Matthew who reported his wife missing, but rather her friend Nathan. When questioned by police, Matthew seemed oddly unconcerned about Elizabeth's whereabouts. He told detectives it wasn't unusual for Elizabeth to take off for a night or two after arguments. He painted a picture of Elizabeth as an unstable, neglectful mother who was likely to have left on her own accord. However, Elizabeth's car was still parked at their home, and there were no signs she had packed a bag or made preparations to leave. Her father, Edward, flew immediately to San Diego from Virginia to assist in the search, insisting there was no way Elizabeth would ever willingly abandon her 2 young daughters. The last time Edward spoke to Elizabeth on October 13th, she had told him she planned to lock herself in her bedroom that night to get away from Matthew. As the investigation unfolded, more concerning details emerged about Matthew and Elizabeth's volatile relationship. In March 2014, Elizabeth had called 911 during an argument with Matthew over custody and child support, reporting a long history of domestic violence. Police responded, but Matthew was not arrested. Elizabeth's friends corroborated witnessing Matthew's aggressive behavior toward her. Just a month before Elizabeth vanished, Matthew had discovered she was seeing other men through online dating sites. This revelation led to heightened tensions in the home. Elizabeth was actively pursuing divorce and seeking a restraining order against Matthew's parents, with whom she had a strained relationship. Despite mounting evidence pointing to Matthew's potential involvement, police lacked any concrete proof of foul play. Elizabeth seemed to have simply vanished into thin air. With no significant leads or evidence, the case went cold after 10 months of investigation. Then on October 6, 2016, almost exactly 2 years after Elizabeth disappeared, a body was found floating in San Diego Bay, just half a mile from the Sullivans' home. Although badly decomposed, dental records confirmed it was Elizabeth Sullivan. Her death was now being investigated as a homicide. The autopsy revealed Elizabeth had been brutally beaten and stabbed to death. She had at least 5 deep stab wounds to her chest, as well as a broken jaw and nose. Crucially, the body did not appear to have been in the water for the full 2 years since Elizabeth went missing. This suggested her killer had only recently dumped her remains in the bay. In a shocking coincidence, police learned that Matthew Sullivan was in the process of moving out of state on the very day Elizabeth's body was recovered. He had left the Navy and was relocating to Delaware with his new pregnant fiancée and Elizabeth's 2 daughters. Even more suspiciously, records showed Matthew had purchased a high-powered carpet cleaner on the day Elizabeth was reported missing in 2014. Armed with this new evidence, investigators obtained a search warrant for the Sullivans' former townhome. What they found was damning. A large bloodstain was discovered under the carpet in the master bedroom, having soaked through to the wood flooring beneath. DNA testing confirmed it was Elizabeth's blood. In the attic, police recovered a knife with traces of Elizabeth's blood, the likely murder weapon. But one huge question remained. Where had Elizabeth's body been hidden for 2 years before being dumped in the bay? Cadaver dogs brought to search the home led investigators straight to a large freezer in the garage. While no physical evidence remained, It appeared Elizabeth's body may have been stored there, explaining the lack of decomposition and the fact that her remains showed signs of having been positioned on one side for an extended period. With this wealth of physical evidence finally tying Matthew to Elizabeth's murder, he was arrested on January 31, 2018, at his new home in Delaware. He was charged with first-degree murder and extradited back to California to stand trial. Matthew Sullivan's trial began on February 21, 2020. Prosecutors laid out a devastating case against him, presenting the physical evidence found in the home along with testimony about the couple's deteriorating relationship. They theorized that Matthew killed Elizabeth on October 13, 2014, during an argument about her plans for divorce. He then hid her body in the freezer for 2 years before dumping it in the bay as he prepared to move away with his new family. The prosecution highlighted Matthew's suspicious behavior, including his apparent lack of concern when Elizabeth first went missing and his attempts to paint her in a negative light. They also emphasized the highly incriminating timing of his carpet cleaner purchase and the disposal of Elizabeth's body just as he was set to move cross-country. Matthew's defense team attempted to create reasonable doubt by suggesting Elizabeth could have been killed by someone she met through online dating. They also tried to use her history of drug use and erratic behavior to bolster the theory that she may have gotten involved with dangerous people. However, they struggled to explain away the overwhelming physical evidence tying Matthew to the crime scene. After a month-long trial and 3 days of jury deliberations, Matthew Sullivan was found guilty of second-degree murder on March 12, 2020. He was sentenced to 16 years to life in prison on March 12, 2021, exactly 1 year after his conviction. At the sentencing hearing, Elizabeth's family finally had the opportunity to confront her killer and share the impact of her loss. Her father, Edward, spoke of the anguish of losing his daughter and the pain of explaining to Elizabeth's young children that their mother was never coming home. He condemned Matthew for robbing Elizabeth of her life and depriving 2 little girls of their mother's love. The judge admonished Matthew for his callous actions, noting that he had not only murdered his wife, subjected her body to the ultimate indignity by storing it in a freezer for years. She also highlighted the calculating nature of Matthew's attempts to cover up the crime and evade justice. For Elizabeth's loved ones, the conviction and sentencing brought a measure of closure after years of uncertainty and grief. While nothing could bring Elizabeth back or undo the trauma inflicted on her family, they expressed relief that her killer would be held accountable and no longer pose a threat to others. The Elizabeth Sullivan case garnered significant media attention, both when she initially disappeared and after the shocking discovery of her body 2 years later. The tragic story of a young mother murdered by her husband and hidden away for years resonated with many. It highlighted the very real dangers of domestic violence and the devastation it wreaks on families. Elizabeth's case also demonstrated the importance of persistence in cold case investigations. Though the trail initially went cold, detectives never gave up on solving her disappearance. When new evidence finally emerged, they were able to quickly capitalize on it, bring her killer justice. For the investigators who worked tirelessly on the case for years, Matthew's conviction represented the culmination of their efforts to uncover the truth. The physical evidence they meticulously collected and analyzed proved crucial in securing the guilty verdict. In the wake of the trial, Elizabeth's family established a foundation in her name dedicated to supporting victims of domestic violence and their children. They hope that by sharing Elizabeth's story, they can help others recognize the warning signs of abuse and find the strength to leave dangerous relationships before it's too late. The case continues to be cited as an example of the potential for solving cold cases through advances in forensic technology and renewed investigative effort. It serves as a reminder that even when a trail seems to have gone completely cold, new evidence can emerge years later to crack a case wide open. For those who knew and loved Elizabeth Sullivan, the pain of her loss will never fully fade. But knowing that her killer is behind bars and that her story may help save others provides some solace. Elizabeth is remembered as a devoted mother whose life was cut tragically short by domestic violence. Her case stands as a sobering reminder of the vital importance of believing and supporting victims, as well as the devastating consequences when cries for help go unheeded. While justice for Elizabeth took far too long, her loved ones take comfort in knowing the truth finally came to light. Matthew Sullivan will spend decades behind bars contemplating his heinous actions, while Elizabeth's memory lives on through the family, friends, and 2 daughters who continue to mourn her loss and honor her life.